Okay, what's up, everyone? Welcome back to another review. This time we're going to take a look at Play It to the Bone. Written and directed by Ron Shelton, Play It to the Bone tells the story of these two aging prize fighters who are called upon due to unforeseen circumstances. And of course, these two men are looking at this as their one last chance to make it in the big time in the boxing world. So, let's waste no time. Let's get into this. I overall think Play It to the Bone is an extremely rated, underrated movie. This movie isn't fantastic by any stretch of the imagination, but it's definitely not bad at all. I think Play It to the Bone is really entertaining. I think that I think Woody Harrelson and Antonio Banderas have a great on-screen chemistry with one another, playing the two best friends Caesar and Vince respectively. I think their dynamics work for me. I like how they're polar opposites of one another, and it makes for some good comedic moments. And these two they really share the screen really well. This movie also has a very strong supporting cast that includes Richard Wagner, Tom Sizemore, and Lolita Donovich, who I think are all great in their respective roles. With Tom Sizemore, to me, playing this boxing promoter named Joe Domino, who is a complete dick and has a very checkered history with Caesar. Tom Sizemore, he's a really funny actor, and I love his scenes as Joe Domino because he's just screaming and ranting like a complete madman the majority of the time he's on screen, and I just think Sizemore is hilarious. Richard Wagner plays the head honcho, if you will, and I like him in the movie as well. I thought he was fine in his role, and Lolita Davis plays Grace, who is the middle girl in this in amongst everything. She's Caesar's girlfriend, but she also used to have a relationship with Vince, and I like her character as well. Though I think she can come across as a little bit of a bitch in some areas, but she is kind of sort of likable. And I do get, and she does have a lot of redeeming qualities to her. She's not like the Rosie Perez character from White Man Can't Jump, who was a character who I don't know if I'm supposed to like or hate her because she comes across as just so whiny and bitchy, and yet there's other moments where she has valid points. Grace is the exact opposite. I actually like the character of Grace. I actually think she's a mostly she's written fine, so I don't get no complaints about that. Ron Shelton's directing in this movie, I think, is overall solid. This is a well shot, well made movie. Now, it does drag in a lot of areas because we just want to get to what this movie is about, which is about these two friends having to compete against one another because the whole the whole purpose of this movie is that two original fighters were supposed to have a big undercard match, but one of them is coked out of his mind and the other one is in the fucking morgue, to quote Joe Domino. So these two guys were called upon just to put on an exhibition, to put on a show, so that there's something there. But since these guys, they're former prize fighters, so they're looking at this as their last shot to get back into the big leagues. We find out that the Caesar character, he had an incident at the Garden which pretty much cost him his career, and the Vince character, he had an incident where he was in a fight, but in his mind he should have won that fight, but that fight was fixed and he ended up losing. So these two men, they got something to prove not only to everyone else but to themselves as well. And that's where I think the movie's at a strong point, is that these two men are on individual character journeys. They're both trying to redeem themselves from their past demons. And I think the movie, for the most part, did a good job at illustrating it. But there's some stuff in the movie that does not really need to be there. Um, there's a good stretch of the movie where Lucy Liu is in this movie. She plays like a minor love interest to Vince. Her scenes are really irrelevant to the whole story. You take the Lucy Liu character out, this movie would flow much better, and it wouldn't really harm or affect the story at all because her character is superfluous. She doesn't do much. She doesn't really do anything at all. And that's, to me, that's pretty much that's where the big complaint is for this movie. It has ancillary scenes that are just there as filler, just to fill some runtime. And if you could have done without it, we could have gone to the fight much better, much more earlier, and we could have extended. And that fight scene, the big match between the two, could have been extended much more than what it actually was in the actual film. That's personally how I would have done it. But now speaking of the grand spectacle that is the fight scene, it's great. I love the fight scene between the big match between Vince and Caesar. I think it's stylized, it's gritty, it's bloody, and it's violent. and Banderas and Harrelson in that scene, you can tell that these two men are going all out, and they're just putting their all into this scene, and it plays out like a cinematic boxing match. I'm not too crazy of these random imagery that happens in between each of the rounds. I think it's kind of just stupid. Doesn't really need to be there, and and again, it drags the element out of the fight. Uh, Knowing what we know now, seeing what we've seen in the more recent times with boxing movies such as The Fighter, this movie could have taken a page out of that book and actually show the fight without having to do some theatrical nonsense, which to me brings it all down. And another thing that I don't care for, there's this subplot where the character of Grace is trying to pretty much sell some product placement to the Richard Wagner character, and that doesn't need to be in the movie either. That's just there to give Grace something to do. I mean, I think it would have been just fine if Grace was just in the audience cheering on both Caesar and Vince, and that whole element and that whole Richard Wagner subplot, you could have taken it out, and again, the movie would have had a much better flow. But that's just how I feel personally. But listen, overall, I think Played to the Bone is a very solid sports comedy drama. It's got for the most part, it's got some really strong comedy, and a lot of it comes from the chemistry between Banderas and Harrelson. It's got really good drama, but the drama doesn't really come until you get to the big boxing match between the two. And I think I think overall it's a well-made movie. It's nothing that you're going to remember, but it is extremely entertaining. And like I said, I do find it to be very overrated, and I am going to give it a 6.5 out of 10. I enjoy the movie. It's nothing special, but it is entertaining. Anyway, those are my thoughts on Played to the Bone. Let me know yours in the comment section down below. Like the video and subscribe, and I will check you back next time for more.